Hello and welcome to the Daily Aus. I'm Elliot Lawry.
I'm Billi FitzSimons.
This week, 3 shark attacks were reported at Sydney beaches over just 2 days. It's left swimmers along the coastline asking the question, what's going on? To help us understand what's driving the spike and what it means for public safety, we're joined by Associate Professor of Environmental Science, Dr. Daryl McPhee from Bowden University. In today's podcast, we're going to chat to Dr. McPhee about why there's been so many encounters, what swimmers need to look out for, and how he thinks the government should respond.
Elliot, I feel like every single conversation I've had over the past couple of days has been about the shark attacks in Sydney because it's unusual that there are so many in such a short period of time. Do you want to take us back to the first one that happened this week?
So it all started on Sunday when a 12-year-old boy was attacked near Shark Beach in Sydney's east. He was taken to hospital in a critical condition with police at the time saying he's, quote, in for the fight of his life. Now, it was reported that his injuries were consistent with what is believed to have been a large shark, most likely a bull shark.
Okay, and so that was the first attack. That was on Sunday. And then on Monday, we heard of another one, right?
Yes, exactly. So we had this first incident. Then on Monday, we heard 2 more reports of shark attacks in Sydney. The first one was an 11-year-old boy who had his surfboard bitten by a shark at DY, which is on Sydney's northern beaches. He was not injured in the incident, but his board certainly was. Did you see the pictures of this?
I did. It was a legitimate bite out of a surfboard.
A chomp.
A chomp. That is a great way to describe it. And luckily, the boy wasn't injured, which is crazy to think about when you see this photo of the surfboard that has a big chunk taken out of it.
It was certainly a narrow escape, and that shark would have got a mouthful of styrofoam at the very least.
Yes.
Now, a few hours after that, a man in his 20s was attacked by a shark near Manly Beach, which is also in the city's north, not too far from DY. And he was a surfer as well, and it was reported that he was taken to hospital in a critical condition. Now, I just wanted to flag that there has actually been a 4th bite in New South Wales, which came yesterday. So that's Tuesday this week. And this time it was a surfer on the mid-north coast who managed to escape with just a few grazes. Now, while this one wasn't in Sydney, so we won't count it as part of the sort of total going on in Sydney, it does contribute to that sense that there's a lot of shark activity happening in the state this week.
And in the office, we have had so many questions just internally about what is happening, why now, what is it about, weather conditions, if it is that is causing all of these shark bites. And we put you to the task of asking this to an actual expert. And I believe we're about to hear that interview.
Yeah, for sure. So I spoke to Dr. Daryl McPhee. He's renowned for being Australia's sort of go-to experts on sharks and coastal safety. His work includes the study of shark bite incidents in particular and control measures for sharks, as well as how human activity impacts the behaviour of marine life. And he joins us now. Daryl, welcome to the Daily Aus.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, we're talking today because there's been 3 shark attacks in just 2 days at Sydney beaches. Can you start by explaining why it feels like there's been a surge in activity over the past week?
It's unusual to have those series of 3 bites in 24 hours, and we've just had a 4th bite in the mid-north coast as well. So at a decadal trend, the number of shark bites is increasing. We're also getting better at spotting sharks, recording sharks, and circulating that information around through various platforms. So it's a combination of things, but certainly in New South Wales, the number of shark bites has been increasing over time.
And how does that figure compare to maybe the national trend or the historical trend?
There have been increasing trends in other states, with the exception of Tasmania. The more recent bites have been occurring in northern New South Wales, and now we're seeing that series of bites in that short period of time in the greater Sydney area, in the Sydney area.
And what do we know about the sharks or the type of sharks that are responsible for these bites?
There are 3 shark species responsible for most serious bites and fatalities. That's the white shark, the tiger shark, and the bull shark. At least 2 of the incidents in Sydney, and possibly the 3rd, are probably from bull sharks. We expect bull sharks to be present in Sydney Harbour and in the coastal areas around Sydney during these warmer months, particularly during January and February. So it's no surprise that bull sharks have been there. The first recorded bite on a European in Sydney Harbour was 1807. So it is something that has happened for a long time.
And why this week? Is there anything happening with the climate that could have spurred this on?
Hello, my name's Sam. I'm the co-founder of TDA. I'm just popping in to interrupt this video to ask if you could do one thing for me, and that is press subscribe on this YouTube channel. It's the best way to show us that you love what we do and that you're here for our future. And now, back to the deep dive.
There's significant rainfall in the catchments. Bull sharks are very well adapted to feeding in murky water. That rain also flushes down the prey of bull sharks and can concentrate them in areas such as the mouth of rivers, estuaries, and embayments like Sydney Harbour. It's always the case at low light levels, you expect to see more activity from sharks, but also other fish predators, particularly for bull sharks. That later afternoon period seems to be one where they're a little bit more active. So you've got the right time of the year, you've got the right conditions. That doesn't guarantee, thankfully, that a bite will always occur, but there is an elevated shark activity inshore during those set of conditions, and that's what sadly has been experienced.
A common reaction from people reading the headlines is maybe to have a little bit of panic and maybe stay out of the water. Are you able to put into context what the chances of a shark attack are?
The chance of an unprovoked shark bite occurring is very low. It was low last week, it's low this week, and it'll be low again next week. It just doesn't feel like it with this series of bites. But to put it in perspective, there's been 4 bites in Sydney Harbour over the last 50 years. You're substantially at greater risk of drowning at a surf beach than you are being killed by a shark. But the government has closed the beaches, certainly on the northern beaches, for 48 hours, and I think that's a prudent move. If you're a Sydney sider, I wouldn't be getting back in the water until that murky water from that rainfall event has cleared, and avoiding particularly that late afternoon period. It's probably some of the key tips I can give Sydney siders.
And you mentioned there that the New South Wales government, they've shut down these beaches and will probably be considering a series of measures that they could take to help with these types of incidents. When we hear about things like culling, increased tracking, and shark nets, what of those solutions do you think are the most responsible steps to take?
I think in the short term, once the beaches are reopened, I think the state government should increase its drone surveillance. There's some practical challenges with drones, but they're a very important and relevant tool for identifying sharks and providing that information back to surf lifesavers on the beach. There is no 100% way to eliminate shark bites altogether, but we can reduce the risk.
And on the point of shark nets, there's been a lot of discussion over the last year about trials of removing them in places or, potentially expanding them. What's your take on shark nets?
I think the long-term approach is that we do need to transition away from lethal methods to more non-lethal methods. But these sorts of events obviously do not hasten that transition. So we need to stop looking at shark nets as a binary choice, shark nets in, shark nets out. We need to be more nuanced and look for that longer-term transition and bring the beach communities along with that transition.
Now, before we finish, I was wondering if there's anything about sharks that you want our listeners to know, or maybe a myth that you'd like to dispel.
Look, something that's I'm always asked about is that we think we're pretty cool on top of the food chain because we've got 5 senses. Sharks have 8. So they have had 450 million years of evolution to work out how they sense the environment. So they probably think we're pretty primitive with just our 5 senses. They also can detect magnetic fields. So some shark species can migrate large distances based on detecting magnetic fields in the earth. They can detect electric pulses in the water, and that means electric deterrence can be an effective personal deterrent tool. And like other fish, they can also sense vibrations in the water through their sensory system as well. So they get by with 8 senses.
That is amazing. Well, Daryl, thank you so much for your time today, and thanks for joining the Daily Aus.
Thank you.
Such a fascinating chat. Thank you so much to Dr. Daryl McPhee for doing that interview with us. I imagine he's very busy at the moment with the media asking for all of the shark experts to explain to us what is going on. So we really appreciate his time. And thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Daily Aus. We'll be back this afternoon with your evening headlines. But until then, have a good day and stay safe.